Now it's time to learn one of the most important derivative techniques. In one form or another, you'll be using this for the rest of the calculus year, so it's about time we started using it. It's called the chain rule. And let's begin by taking a look at an example. If you're going to try to find the derivative of sine of x, you probably know already that the answer is cosine of x. However, if you want to find the derivative of sine of 3x, well, let me tell you something, it's not cosine of 3x. It's close, but it's not quite right. The problem is that there's a 3x inside that sine, instead of just a plain old x. You see, whenever a function contains something other than just plain old x, you need to use the chain rule to find the derivative. Now, in fancy math terms, when a function is inside another function, for example, in this case, 3x is inside of sine, we call that a composition of functions. So the chain rule is used to find derivatives of composition of functions. Or, less technically, use the chain rule to find the derivative of something if it contains something besides just plain x. Alright, let's take a look at the chain rule in action. We're going to find the derivative of f of x is equal to sine of 3x, which according to what you just watched is definitely not going to equal cosine of 3x. Well, first of all, we have to take a look at the functions here. Well, there's two of them. There's sine and there's 3x. The chain rule is going to tell us what order the derivative has to occur. I mean, obviously we're going to have to take the derivative of sine somewhere and probably the derivative of 3x somewhere. But we need to learn what order that's going to happen in. And the chain rule does that for us. But before we get into that, we need to think about something. We need to decide which of those two functions, sine and 3x, is the inner function and which is the outer function. Well, it's not too hard to decide that 3x is definitely inside of sine, so therefore 3x is the inner function, and sine is the outer function. So now it's time to take the derivative. The chain rule tells me that when I find a derivative, I start with the outer function, and I derive it. So the derivative of sine is cosine, but here's the trick. I leave that inner function alone. So far my answer is cosine of 3x. But now that I'm finished with the outer function, I can finally take the derivative of the inner function, and the derivative of 3x is 3. So my final answer is the derivative, or f prime of x, is equal to 3 cosine of 3x. Now I know this is a little tricky, so let's go ahead and do another example. We'll find the derivative of g of x is equal to the natural log of x cubed. Now in this case, once again, we see two functions, the natural log of x and the cubic function. So we have to decide which is the outside and which is the inside function. Well, it's even easier in this case to tell which is the inner function, because the inner function is actually enclosed inside parentheses. So our inner function is natural log of x, and our outer function is the cubic function. So let's find the derivative according to the chain rule. Remember, when we take the derivative, we start with the outside. So what's the derivative of something to the third power? Well, according to the power rule, it's 3 times something to the second power. Now, what is that something? It's that inner function, and it's going to be left alone. We took the derivative of x cubed, in other words, a very simple derivative. But that natural log of x stays untouched. Until now. Now that we're finished deriving the outside function, we move on to the inside function. And the derivative of natural log of x is 1 over x. So we multiply that new derivative by the derivative we got a second ago. And our final answer is going to be 3 times natural log of x, the quantity squared, all divided by x. And that's our derivative according to the chain rule. So now let's look at the official or scary math definition of the chain rule. It says if we're given a function, h of x, which is equal to f of g of x, in other words, h is the composition of the two functions f and g, then the derivative will be equal to the derivative of the outer function, or f prime, leaving the inside function alone, g of x, times the derivative of the inside function. Okay, time to try one of your own. What's the derivative of e, the natural exponential function, to the x squared power? You've got 4 choices. Go to it. As soon as you decide on the choice you think is correct, Just click on it.